Hey there, friends. It is me, Rick Walton, again, and this time I'm in dangerously Hitchcockian light. Don't know really. But don't panic. I'm here just to talk in a friendly kind of way about books or a particular book. Hope you can see that in the dangerous light. It's Afua Hirsch. Afua. Um, let's start with that name. I know this is a troubling place to start in a sense. Yes, that name, beautiful actually. The first name in particular, I think it probably is pronounced Ifwa or something similar, having read the book wherein the author um, talks about this being inevitably central to her struggle to reach an understanding around who she is, what her identity is, what she's comfortable with. She actually writes something to the effect that she didn't know how to say her own name properly until she was 20 odd or whatever. And that's because it's Ghanaian. She is half Ghanaian. She's Ghanaian, Brit, mixed race. Affix your own labels that you are comfortable with. Her mum, Ghanaian. Her father's father, actually, originally German Jewish. So fabulous, rich mixture that comes together because on the father's side, I'm trying to get this right. Grandfather fled Nazi Germany in the nick of time. I think 1938. Came to the UK, finished up in London. Mum, less troubled, in fact, relatively affluent background, I believe. Spent the first 12 years of her life in Ghana, private school, comfortable, etc., before coming to London, um, where she met the son of, he was Jan Hirsch, I believe, who changed his name to John, I think, because needed to in 1938 in London. Um, so that's the immediate origins, if you like. But yeah, so fascinating name actually, and we're going to use this term mixed race every now and again because it's in the book, despite both the author and myself having some kind of discomfiture around it, or a little, because it applies for obvious reasons. Okay, but it is her story, and it's very much a personal adventure through her experiences, and I am thinking that you would be forgiven for having some concerns about that, because that sometimes is a clue to something that is really pretty indulgent, maybe. Not the case for me in this at all. It's absolutely about her and her family, but I like it. I like it because of the honesty and the self-awareness and the generosity displayed throughout. And I'll hopefully, as I talk, that will become plainer. What I'm meaning by things like generosity, I think, is that she is absolutely able and willing to be very open about, for example, the fact that they are a relatively affluent family in Wimbledon. Okay, let's start with this kind of stuff. She's brought up in Wimbledon, southwest London. Not all of it leafy and beautiful, but some of it, and they were certainly in the kind of parklandy kind of area. I think she also went to a poshish private school. Home was lovely and comfortable, for want of a better word. Yes, so and yet on the flip side of that, she is pretty much, her and sister, the only or two of very few mixed race or black kids in the area at that time, possibly even now in that leafy little area, and therefore targeted is probably put in a bit strongly, but exposed in a way, or obvious for their frizzy hair and their looks, their skin being different, etc. So yes, she runs, despite these privileges, she does run a sort of gamut of obvious microaggressions about people teasing her about the hair or whatever, or things that feel really important to her about not being able to get hair products because nobody in Wimbledon, there are no black kind of cosmetic or hairdressers, people who understand what you need to do for that kind of hair, right? So from that upwards to people being nasty, abusive, aggressive, people saying, or if not saying, watching her and or her sister in the shop because they think that as a black kid or as a mixed race kid, they are 96% more likely to pinch something down their mate who happens to be white. All that stuff. So there's awareness that all that is on her personal record. It's here. And yeah, she's really bright, private school, provides opportunities. She works her way to Oxford. Prior to that, and this is interesting because really quite early on, I'm not quite clear, maybe 9, 10, something like that, she's already starting to outwardly wonder, and she has a diary. She's kind of precocious, but not in, I don't mean that in an entirely negative way. She's just talented and got lots of ideas. So does keep a diary of stuff, and then is able to write. So because of the private school access to stuff, I think I'm right on that. She gets the opportunity to write for The Voice, the black magazine, and this is the start of actually of a career, as we know her now, in TV and journalism, etc., etc., etc. But opportunities are there, and that stuff she acknowledges freely, generously. Anyway, Oxford, gets to Oxford, is outstanding student, and yet also experiences a range, as one might expect, sadly, of aggressions or different kinds of levels of racism, from being thrown out, or a friend thrown out of college A because the porter or warden or whatever you might call him can't quite believe that that black individual is really one of their brilliant students. That kind of stuff happens. She becomes very conscious of this thing of imposter syndrome, whereby feels there just aren't many of us black mixed race people here. It's all a bit pressured. Do I represent somebody? What do I need to do to be A, accepted, B, excel, C, fulfill expectations, or the opposite actually, prove people wrong. All that stuff is loaded in a way that just wouldn't be for a white student. Very conscious of all that. Not linked directly, but as one of the early examples in the book of really powerful racism that does have a pretty concerted effect upon her. Very, very different. I'm not clear if it's before or after Oxford. So I'm going to get interrupted here by my dog, who I'm just going to stroke for 1 minute. I may not introduce you, forgive me. Her and a friend. That's right, it is a journalism mission. So probably after Oxford, when she's either at the Guardian, or because she got there early doors, or another paper on the way, or maybe The Voice. Anyway, she goes to, with her pal, what turns out to be a sex club, basically, in Dunstable. I'm just looking for the name. I think it's called Arousals Dunstable. Can you imagine? I can't. But it's kind of, read the book because it's scary and nauseating, and it's also deeply offensive on all kinds of levels, but particularly in terms of race. There's something called Black Man's Fan Club, and I'm going to say no more. Read the book, not just for that, because that's seedy, it's tawdry, it's pretty bloody awful, but it had a powerful effect on her and was revelatory, I think, in some ways, alongside other things. So, dog shaking. Oxford inevitably leads to other wonderful things, right? Why wouldn't it? She pretty immediately gets a fairly remarkably responsible job in Senegal. By this time, what would that be, 22 or something like that? She is really clear that she needs to go back to West Africa, having been briefly, I believe, some years before. but she needs to kind of find herself, and forgive me if that sounds corny, but that's what it is. This is going on. She really is searching for identity, and goes back with family. Sorry, beg your pardon. Goes to Senegal to work. An extraordinary job which has loads of responsibility. It sounds like gobsmackingly exciting and an adventure. Does it work out? No, it really doesn't. Despite the fact that Senegal is rich and fabulous and extraordinary in many ways, it's also scary and depressing in other ways. Again, go read the book to find out. Pooch, you'll have to just lie down. Go on, lie down. So, yeah, it really doesn't work out. And one of the things I like about the book is she's very honest, very generous, very self-aware about this stuff, where she's on this charge, surging to try and find herself, and falls flat on her face. In some respects, she does, on more than one occasion. I'll leap forward to another occasion, which is similar but different. She has found this fabulous bloke called Sam, with whom she shares Ghanaian heritage, but they are incredibly different. Again, this is really revealing, is the word I'm looking for, facet of the book, is that her fella is very streetwise, black Londoner, and I'm trying to find the words that he uses to describe it. He's very proud of being a proper black Londoner, and by that I mean he's from Tottenham, he gets the street thing, he's comfortable with it, or he's learned to live through it, shall we say. He's got fabulous aspirations, but yeah, he's rough and streetwise in a way that Afua just has never had to be. And she is really kind of very fair and generous about this in revealing quite a lot of stuff, because they are, I believe they're still together, they've got children together, they've had a fantastic adventure in life together, both of them in different ways, searching for some stuff, identity. I'm hesitating because Sam is just not the same for Sam. Sam is obviously feels rooted and confident, I think is maybe a word that seems fair, in his black London street. He does call it the hood very often and unashamedly, without any kind of issue. That's where he's from. He's from the hood. He's clear about that. And so, interestingly, when they start to become an item, he absolutely flatly refuses to become part of Afua's, I nearly used the word entourage, I don't mean that, her little slightly privileged, more than slightly, comfortable circle of friends, because they're very, very different, despite the fact that of the commonalities, the Ghanaian thing, the mixed race thing, etc., etc. They are living in different worlds in a way, and that's kind of fascinating and extraordinary, but it's absolutely openly revealed in the book. And I'm going on about this because they challenge each other clearly in ways that are quite tough, around Sam saying outright, kind of, look, you're indulging in all this stuff. What right have you got to do this sort of stuff? Nobody else can afford to do this. That kind of issue is there, and yet clearly they love each other and respect each other, and are big enough to talk through these things or argue through these things and find a way of finding some kind of common purpose. And that common purpose is, it's going to be something to do in their different ways of finding identity. In her case, it's absolutely the thing. And I think that struggle is probably ongoing, to be honest, but the book is about most of this, growing up through this search thing, okay? But to repeat myself somewhat, it's not an indulgence, it's very generous, it's broader. She does, of course, it's not all about her own family life. A good deal of it is, but in a way that's healthy, but it's absolutely in order to expose and reveal and tell the story of racism at different levels, from those microaggressions that she talks about, hair and stuff, to filthy stuff, general stuff, structural racism which denies opportunity, and this is where she's very clear. Of course, she's lucky in the sense that she is not being denied much compared to many people. However, she is experiencing racism. Most of her colleagues, such as she had, because there were very often few who were black or mixed race, but other men, women, children, obviously, in the black community experience daily appalling, obvious, heartbreaking, structural racisms continuously. And so the book is a protest song in that sense. It's saying, come on, people, let's get real. Haven't we got past this? Can't we get past this kind of stuff? I like it a lot. I think it's very intelligent and very generous in the way I've described. Please go and read it. There's much that I've missed out. Go and do that. That's the important stuff. Read the book. Afua Hirsch, British. Okay? Go find it. It's there. Enjoy.